Welcome back to My View. For 4 long years, they told us he was fine. The media nodded and the experts circled the wagons. And all the while, Joe Biden's presidency was slipping. We were a nation governed not by a man, but by an autopen, a signature machine. Not to mention the hidden network of handlers calling the shots while America paid the price. The scandal is so unprecedented, President Trump ordered an investigation into the former president's actions. In a memo, the president cited Biden's cognitive decline and directed White House counsel to probe whether individuals illegally exercised the powers of the presidency behind closed doors. Biden has since fired back, insisting he was in control of the White House throughout his term, saying, quote, "Let me be clear. I made the decisions during my presidency. I made the decisions about the pardons, executive orders, legislation, and proclamations. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false." Okay. But former Speaker Newt Gingrich calls this a constitutional collapse, a fraud perpetrated on the American people, sold by historians and propped up by liberal media networks with an agenda. I sat down with Newt this week as the cover-up is exposed, and to unpack his new book, Trump's Triumph, his account of how Trump crushed the deep state, shattered the media's grip, and ignited America's comeback. Well, Speaker Newt Gingrich, we're so happy to have you here on My View. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start tonight by asking you a little bit about Joe Biden. Everyone is talking now that there are books out talking about the cognitive decline. It's very apparent, I think, to a lot of people what has transpired over the past 4 years. Where does this rank in terms of political scandals, and how is this going to impact things going forward?
Well, I think by the time we learn all of it, it'll be the biggest scandal in American history. I mean, it dwarfs the Teapot Dome or the Grant second administration or what happened with Richard Nixon. And the reason is sometime, I think it's probably in 2023, but at some point, Joe Biden was no longer there. And that means that other people were exercising the power of the presidency without any constitutional limitations. And I really think the key is not to look at Biden, but to look at the various Obama people who had infiltrated that system and who were making amazing decisions. But the one I find the most interesting is that on one day after the election, one day, he commuted 2,400 people. Now, you know, he didn't have a clue. Somebody was running the autopen, somebody was giving them instructions, and somebody was making deals somewhere. That's just a tiny example of how bad it was. And I think we have to find out who are the various people who were abusing power. And then there's a sad story here, which is the decay of somebody. It's really elder abuse. I mean, you have a cover-up scandal of Biden, and then you have all these people who were, I think, acting illegally.
Well, I want to ask you about the media because I think it's interesting. You know, they really do feel complicit to so many people in what happened. It feels like they were working alongside whoever it was at the White House and the Democrat Party to try to cover this up. What do you think the impact will be? And maybe we're already starting to see some of the impact with the legacy media.
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, the legacy media has never recovered from the invention of the term fake news. And it's all true. I mean, Jake Tapper personifies fake news. And in that sense, the base of their support continues to shrink. And the level to which they're believed, I think, continues to shrink. And, you know, someday somebody will put together a serious book that looks at this is what they were saying, this is what was happening. Actually, it would be a great movie. I mean, consistently across the board, they lied, and they lied for the purpose of protecting their side.
Well, the good news is we're talking about it, and hopefully we're coming to the other side of that. You know, we all suffered, I feel like, as a country over the past 4 years under Joe Biden, his presidency. Maybe we have to put that in air quotes. But you say that we should expect a Trump boom. So what does that look like? And why are you so confident about this?
I was sufficiently confident that I started writing Trump's Triumph in October.
Oh.
Because I was convinced he was going to win. When you take getting the bill through the Senate conference and then signed, If that can be done this summer, and I think it will be, the power of the tax cuts, the power of the deregulation, the power of the spending cuts, the lower interest rates, combined with what he's doing with tariffs, combined with this extraordinary personal salesmanship. I mean, he goes to the Middle East, and in 4 days, he gets $1 trillion in sales, $1 trillion in investments. Well, all of that has a multiplier effect on the economy. I personally think by the summer of 26, we're going to have a Trump boom, and that the key question in the 26 election is going to be, is it working? If it's working, we'll keep the House, increase the Senate. If it's not working, then Republicans are in big trouble.
A recent CNN poll, if you can believe this, on which party's views are closer to yours. More Americans now side, Mr. Speaker, with Republicans on the economy, taxes, and the federal budget. That feels like a really good omen going into 2026. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but does that give you a lot of confidence?
First of all, I have enormous confidence in Donald Trump. I've watched him for many, many years. He's one of the great historic figures, and I have great faith that he is going to work his way through to a series of remarkable achievements. Second, when you come down to it, you have to be fair here. We're doing pretty well, but look who we're compared to. I mean, if you look at the New York mayor's race, you have Cuomo, who is at best a very decrepit, pretty close to a crook, and then you have this new guy who is so radical, so anti-Jewish, and so committed to a world that none of us want, and that's the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And I think that when you go around the country, you see the beginning of a real civil war in their party.
Well, I want to talk about your book, Trump's Triumph. I love that you said you started writing it in October.
Yes.
So tell me why you were so confident about that, but also what are people going to learn about this president in your book that maybe we don't already know?
I had a sense, and the book's subtitle is America's Greatest Comeback, because there were two things going on. There's this huge underlying movement that began with Goldwater, came all the way up through Reagan and the Contract with America, and really became the MAGA movement. And there's this man, and the two came together. And I really felt, I remember I was at the pre-convention in Milwaukee the day he was shot in Butler, and I remember going on Hannity that night and saying that it was providential that he was not killed. I mean, he moved so much exactly that you needed to survive that I really did think of God's hand on it. And then, I mean, I almost laugh about it. Look, here's a guy, when Kamala Harris is running around raising billions of dollars and doing all the things politicians do. So he goes to McDonald's. Well,
and gets in a garbage truck.
And gets in a garbage truck. But what people don't realize is 87% of the country goes to McDonald's at least once a year. President Trump's instincts for the American people are in the same league as I would say Lincoln or Roosevelt or Jefferson. He just intuits where the average American is, and then he articulates it in a language they understand. And of course, all the elite liberals then go crazy because he's saying things they hate in a language they hate, and he's behaving like he really shouldn't belong to their personal club because he's not the right kind of guy. I mean, I personally believe, I don't know if you buy this or not, I think coming from Queens to Manhattan and never being fully accepted, because after all, he was from Queens.
Yeah.
I think that affected him, and at some point he thought, okay, I'm just going to be me, because I can't possibly please you clowns.
I think you're onto something there. We'll have to ask him about that ourselves. But I think it's great. I love that you started us on this, talking about this incredible comeback with this book. I hope everybody checks it out. Trump's Triumph. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, thank you so much for spending some time on My View.
Great to be with you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.